Hey guys, today I want to do a little how-to tutorial on something that all of you who are customers of mine already know we discuss on the phone. It's how to make your own turbo manifolds out of your stock manifolds. And there's a couple different ways. The obvious and easiest way, which is not how I'm going to do it today, but that is to turn the manifolds backwards. And here on the table I have a few different styles. I have many styles, and as you can see, they are all slightly different. This one's pretty beefy. This is like off of the one side of a 6 liter. This one's a little smaller. Depending on the year, make, and model of the truck engine you start with will determine the exact shape, how they flow, and even the angle of the flange. This one's one I've already cut off. But kind of what I wanted to show you is, for example, with this one here, if I would have cut this flange off straight like this, okay, we could then take this V-band. This is a 2.5-inch V-band. And let me open it up here and actually show you what it's like. Let me grab my wrench. Just bear with me a second. Only take a second here. Okay, so flopping this camera all around, making you guys seasick. How dare I? Anyway, there we go. So this is a V-band, okay? A V-band is simply a clamp that allows you to put together like this and then seal with that clamp two components of exhaust pipe. What's nice about it is if we had cut this off straight here, we could go ahead and actually, goes this way, welded this V-band here to the end, like this, or even took a small piece of exhaust pipe, like say for example, let me just grab a random piece. This one's kind of a straightish piece. Let's say we needed it moved out farther. We could have actually ended up welding this onto here, or onto here, or even like this, however we want. We could even done a 45 or a 90 and then put the V-band on the end of it, essentially angling the V-band whichever way we want. My garage here is burning garbage and the smoke's coming in. So that's the simple kind. That's where we would basically take both manifolds, turn them both forward, and end up putting some sort of a V-band connection onto them, either like this, or like I said, with a small piece of pipe, even doing it straight, however I disorientated it and showed you. And that would give you basically your own homemade turbo manifolds to clear whatever you need to clear and run exactly where you want to run. You don't even have to do the V-band directly on here, or even to a little piece of pipe like this. You could run a much larger piece of pipe out first to a U, a 45, whatever you need, and then do it. These are cast steel, not cast iron, so they weld very, very, very well. The other thing that we discuss in my turbo kits a lot, and bear with me that all these pieces are used because this was actually a kit that I had made a long time ago for a project for my dad, and I just cut it back up to get the bare pieces out of it. Because when you buy my kits from me, you get the bare V-band, you get the bare T4 flange, bare 3-inch V-band, stuff like that, etc. There's some pieces down there I was cutting up as well. But this is one my dad did. He didn't follow the instructions exactly right. I told him to squish a piece of 3-inch pipe in the vise like I tell my customers and kind of get it to fit inside here. You can see he kind of squished it, but then also left it overhang here a little bit. That's not that big a deal. It's not interfering with the bolt holes at all. That little lip isn't going to really affect anything too much, but I would have rather seen this kind of squished up a little and more towards the edge like this one is. Either way, this will still work and this will work fine. So what I'm going to show you guys today is how to do the more complicated one. Some of you are familiar with a company out there. I don't know if I want to use their name, but they're kind of tricky. That's a play on the word. Anyway, they're a tricky performance place, and they make a manifold that goes on the passenger side that faces forward like these would, except for it's all cast, and it has a flange already built on it here for the turbo, like this. Actually, it's like this. And they also have then a V-band outlet back here that allows you to run your other manifold stock and then come make your own cross pipe to come down under your oil pan or between your oil pan and your bell housing, and then you come back up and you tie into here, essentially making it a 2-into-1, and then it goes into the manifold. Well, that's the kind I'm going to show you how to do today, except for spending $600. You're going to use your free manifold you already have and the bare pieces I supply you in the turbo kit and some locally sourced pieces of exhaust pipe that you'll get from your own local exhaust pipe shop or whatever. That's the kind I'm going to show you today. Now, there are two different ways to do this. Obviously you can see the huge difference in diameter between this one and this one. Depending on your ultimate horsepower goal and how far you, how high power you end up wanting to run, you could technically flow both sides through this diameter. This is pretty beefy inside. You could technically end up just putting a port back here, basically cutting this pipe in order to fit, drill a hole right here, and put this pipe on and angle it down to past your starter or however you need to do for your actual chassis, and then run a V-band on it, something like this, and that would let you pump both sides through the same manifold. That is for lower horsepower builds, very simple. I wouldn't try it on this one, this one's much too thin. But the other way of doing it is the way I'm going to show you today, and that's where I'm going to actually take another piece of pipe. I got some 3" and I have some 2.5" and I haven't decided exactly which way I'm going to do this yet, and I'll go through it with the video. I'm going to either use 3.5 or 3" or 2.5. I haven't decided yet, but I'm going to make this kind of mimic the same exact way that other one was we just discussed, except for it's going to be homemade, cost me virtually nothing, and it'll do the same performance. I just got to decide if I'm going to use 2.5" or 3", because this is actually going to end up going on one of our project cars. So I'll pick up the video then here in a few minutes with some progress and showing you more about what I decided what I'm going to do here. Okay, so in this case I decided to go with this model, the thinner one, because we're going to be doing a little bit of a higher horsepower build. It won't be a super high horsepower build. So basically you kind of look down in there and you'll see where these runners end up being flat at. And I drew a line straight across the top here. I'm basically going to scalp this thing. I'm just going to take the scalp off the top of it. And then once we have the scalp off, we'll take a piece of 3" pipe and we will actually end up notching out the 3" pipe as well. And then fitting the 3" pipe around this. And once it's fitted around there, we'll weld this perimeter up, and that'll give us basically a manifold that can flow this side and the other side through one pipe without any restriction. And I'll show you how that's done here in a minute. Alright guys, so here you can see I scalped it. Basically trim the top off. Now when this goes up against the block, when you flip manifolds, you automatically got to kind of watch for your spark plug wire clearance. There'll be two ways of doing it, either getting extended wires and coming out around everything, or using your short wires and trying to go down through and just protect them with some wrap. The other thing is when we put this on, we got to kind of keep this way as far as possible. So you see how I scalped it. The downside to this manifold is it actually has a dog leg here, it turns out. So I'm going to have to do the top piece in 2 pieces. I'll do it to right around here with the straight piece, and then I'll cut and weld my 90 kind of out in here. And you'll see as we go. But that's how far I got so far. I scalped it, taken, made the top kind of flat, just trimmed it off. I could have actually trimmed less off and been okay. I trimmed actually off probably more than I needed to. I'll have to cut this out a little wider, that's all. So I'm going to lay this on top of there now and trace it out with the marker so I see what I got to cut and go from there. Also, you want to measure your overhang back here, because you're going to end up going down at an angle. It'll be roughly a 45 like this. I'll probably end up reclaiming this piece. Might even just leave that V-band on there and just reclaim this piece and go down. And that'll be the piece that comes around. Now keep in mind that the piece coming around from the other side is going to be 2.5", and this is 3", so we will have to neck it down. We will have to use some sort of a 3" to 2.5" reducer. I'm not sure if I have one. It doesn't look like it. I may end up having to pick one up. But yep, so far so good. I only got a couple minutes into this. Lots of scrap pieces I keep laying around. I didn't buy anything new. So so far we're free. I'll keep track of anything that I do have to buy to let you guys know. Alright, I'll pick up in a minute with some more progress. Okay, and here you can see how I traced out the opening with marker. I'm just going to go ahead and cut that out now and get ready to weld it up. Okay guys, this is how far we are here. As you can see, my cuts weren't perfect. I have some gaps here. I'll end up probably filling them in with weld, or even put some sheet metal in there, just a little triangle where my gap was too much on that side. This side ended up laying pretty flat, a little bit of a gap. There you go, you see how it goes through there. I'll take the camera over with me and I'll show you guys how it lines up on the mock-up motor I'm putting it on. For now it's just tack welded in place. Still have to do the 90 here at the front. So let me run over here and show you guys how it lines up on the truck motor. Okay guys, here we have it on the truck motor held in position, and you can see what I was talking about with the spark plug wires, how they're very close to touching. In fact, they do touch. You end up having to run them down in between there with some protective sleeves on them. See how I just pushed that down and now it's not touching? So there's plenty of space to go down and behind. You just may end up having to do some trickery with them to keep them from touching. We'll end up probably wrapping this and wrapping them anyway. So now the point is going to be to put the 90-degree on here, so the turbo will sit right on here in front, and the 45, or I should say 90 in the back here as well, so that it'll go down. We want it to end up going down before the edge of the motor, so that way you don't have any clearance issues with the firewall. Alright guys, so there's a small update. I got the front piece on. I found it was probably going to be easier to fill this in and then try to make this all fit in one. So you see I even have a gap there I got to fill in. But it'll be nice once I'm finished with it. I'll put a piece of metal in there and grind it down, make it look beautiful. Teach you an old pipe fitter's trick here to make this piece perfectly. Let me get set up here and I'll show you. So what I did was I took an old piece of cardboard, wrapped it around and pushed in where the edges are, and you see how the edges are there? See how it's kind of that's the piece I got to cut out, and if I cut that, lay that out and then trace it on a piece of metal, it'll lay in there just right. And I'll pick that up here with me doing that next. There we go. Traced her out on this piece here. When I cut that, it should go right down in there nice. I never worry about gaps. I'm not one of those people that worries too much about gaps, because you know welding fills them in for you for free. So don't be too picky about your gaps. You can always use your wire and your welder to fill them in, or if the gap's too big to jump, I even slice a little piece of steel out, lay it in there, and weld it in. You can always take the grinding wheel to it later and make it nice and smooth and beautiful, which I'll do with this one, and you'll see when it's finished. You want to be able to tell there was any gaps. So I'll pick up with some more progress. Okay guys, small update. I got this piece pretty much fastened on. Perimeter welded all the way around. I've got this the design in here finished. Perimeter welded all the way around. I don't have it finished back in here yet because I got to determine what kind of angle I got to go yet for the chassis this is going in. It's probably going to end up having to hug real close, just enough to get this bolt barely in because of the firewall and the way the motor sits back. And again, the chassis you stick yours in will greatly determine the shape here on the top. You see how this one kind of goes out and down? That's because this manifold did this, and I had to kind of follow that. But on the mock-up motor that I'm putting this on in there, I found that I can actually hug this in a lot closer. So I'm going to redesign this here a little bit and see if I can't get this in slightly more with this flange. In other words, I'll try to show you this here. End up putting the flange somewhere more like over here and tuck down nice and tight. You want the turbo to ultimately not sit any higher than the truck intake. And of course, if you're running a car intake, that'd be even lovelier if you wouldn't set any higher than that. But these primarily go on trucks. That's why the tricky guys who make the performance manifold kind of did this, because it fits under the hood of a truck. You could still use the same exact design on a car. You may end up just coming straight out. You know, come straight out right here. Put the turbo hanging out a little bit in front of the motor. There's tons and tons of options. I'm just trying to give you guys some ideas on how to save a lot of money and not have to pay $600 for one manifold. You can do your own. I've probably got an hour into this, and I'll probably end up having about 2 hours in it by the time it's finished. But this will flow plenty of horsepower for, you know, manifolds are good for up to 1,000 horsepower. So by all means, even just having two coming into a single 3-inch here, this sucker will still be good for 1,000 horsepower. So I'm going to working on it here some more, get her finished up, get her up on the mock-up motor, and show you guys some more here. Stay tuned. Alright guys, another small update. Spent a little more time piecing this thing together here, and here's kind of where we're at. So this will end up bolting to the block, something like this. And my welds, I use a 110 welder, so if I was going to like coat this thing and not hide it under wrap, I would fill in these grooves here a little better where I ground down and there's still low spots. I'd fill those in and make that look beautiful, kind of like I did in here. But I decided I'm just probably going to end up wrapping this in header wrap anyway. So no sense in doing much more than what I've done as far as grinding the welds down. I didn't even bother grinding these welds in here because these look good. So that's how far I've got there. Kind of gives you an idea. I got a couple hours into it. And again, different shaped manifolds require different shapes. I keep taking this over and sticking it on our engine we have on a stand over in the other shop, and kind of get an idea where the turbo is going to sit. The next piece I'm going to do now is the downpipe off of here, and kind of wish I could neck this down to 2.5 inch right here, to be honest with you. That'd be more space between the firewall is going to end up being like right around here, so it's got to be a real tight turn. So I want to see about possibly necking this down to 2.5 inch right there, because it's going to be 2.5 inch from the other pipe over anyway, and we don't need anything else than that. So there we go. Homemade. Didn't cost me a dime because I had these parts laying around. Basically for me, you'll get this flange. That'll be in your kit, and you'll have to source your own exhaust piping, and of course reuse your manifolds, but you'll be able to do one of these too. I'm going to go ahead and finish up this side, finish up the weld, and then I'm going to go put it over on the dummy engine, and then shoot some video of showing you guys with it sitting on there with a turbo even on it, so you get a better idea. I'll be back in a few. Okay guys, I actually decided to not finish up the tail here until I actually have this. I'm going to use this on a project, so rather than have to cut it apart later if I don't do it exactly right, whereas you'll have the benefit of actually be doing this for a car that you already have out in front of you, I'm going to let this alone like this. I'll go over and show you how it mounts on the engine a while, but I'm going to leave this alone because I don't know how much clearance I'm going to have. I don't know if I'm going to put this on the Mustang that we're doing a 5.3 turbo in, or even we're doing an S10 with a 5.3 turbo, so I don't, and each one will probably need a little different of a turn down right here. But to give you an idea what basically you're going to want to do would be take like a 90 here, and you know, you would end up putting a reducer here for the 3 inch down to 2.5. This is actually 2 1/4 here, but I didn't have any 2.5 inch on hand. I do have a reducer here, a little rusty, but it's a reducer that would work. I could reduce this down, and then this would run down at whatever angle I need, or even a 45. Even a 45 or something like this, come down depending on your actual firewall clearance. Basically past your starter, and for the other side to wrap around and join into, and then you would use a V-band to connect the two of them together. So that's it. Let's take the camera over, take this baby over, and put it on one of the mock-up engines, and show you guys how well it ends up working, and see if we just saved ourselves like 600 bucks. I'll pick up with me over at the other engine. Alright guys, I'm over here in the other shop. Here's a LS motor. It's a 5.3. We're going to end up putting into that S10 back there one of these days. This has already got the valve springs done to it, and it even had a set of our JS Racing Products turbo headers like you see in my Malibu already on it for a while, because we actually were going to put this into a, there's the other header there. We're actually going to put this into a Vega that had a tubular front end, so there's plenty of room. But here you can see the manifold actually on a mock-up engine. Don't mind the mess around here. This shop hasn't been cleaned up in a long time. So as you see, the spark plug wires easily go down past. Let me unhook this one here. Run her down. So there you see how the spark plug wires will clear nicely. The header bolts are really easy to get to. And even better yet, the spark plugs are really easy to get to, which is usually a pain in the ass with a lot of different manifolds out there. I'm trying to show you. Oh, here we are. There. Really easy. So here you can see we're about where the bell housing would end up being, and here where this ends. So you kind of see the distance here. This can actually be trimmed off just a little more. We can trim it into just about where this primary starts to come up in. So we're about a 1/2 inch yet. To start the transition, we'd put a sharp 90 here if we had to. Basically come down in past. Keep in mind we'd want to keep some clearance here for this bolt hole, but that would probably end up being the only bear, depending on how your firewall was and what kind of clearance issues you had in this general area. Everybody will be slightly different, but anyway, this will end up coming down, and then you would end up putting your other stock manifold on the normal direction, and you would come down around underneath and join into that connection you'd put off of here. Both sides would end up flowing through this same nice 3-inch pipe, and this setup with done like that would support up to 1,000 horsepower, guaranteed, no problems. Here you can see the turbo, for the most part, sits level with or slightly lower than the intake manifold, so hood clearance shouldn't be an issue on trucks. What you can kind of adjust as you're building your manifold is, see this one kind of dog-legged out. You could do it where it actually goes straight, bringing this in closer and hugging it in tighter to the engine. The sky's the limit, guys. I just wanted to show you how a couple hours in your shop, a grinder and a cutoff wheel, Sawzall, whatever you have. I have a little 110 welder. How easy it is to go ahead and fabricate yourself up one of these manifolds in a few hours in the shop, drinking a couple beers and having a good time. Definitely don't have to go spend $600–700 on one. This one will work awesome. Can't wait to use it. Sturdy and strong too. Like I said, I'm going to wrap this in some header wrap. Got some header wrap right here off them other manifolds. We'll end up wrapping it really good in that, and she will be a beast. So I hope this video helped you guys a little figure some stuff out. I know a lot of you guys kind of have questions about how to do your own manifold thing, so that's why I did this. Enjoy. Guys, I almost forgot, and in closing I want to point this out to you. The wastegate location is critical too when when we're building these setups. So since the other side is going to be tied into here, the ideal location for the wastegate is going to be somewhere before this flange and after this outlet, which gives us about this surface area here where my hand's at. So this is a 60mm. It's a rather large gate. This is actually where it would be connected in. So I'd probably end up like slicing this piece of pipe off right here. And hole sawing this in an area somewhere in this general area, and then butt welding that in there, and dumping the wastegate dump tube then down to the ground or as far away from the turbo's inlet as I can get it so it can't regurgitate on its own exhaust. But the reason why I haven't done that either is the same reason as I didn't do the back yet, is I don't know, for clearance reasons, exactly where I'm going to put the wastegate. All I do know is it'll be somewhere in this general area here. Somewhere in here, and that's a 60. If the location's kind of small and tight, I'll probably end up running a 44. 44 is much tighter and compact unit, and the Porsche's running one, and I have no problems with that at all. That holds perfect boost. I'm very happy with it. Our wastegates are phenomenal. You guys will be very pleased with them. So that's it, guys. Homemade manifold that simulates the $600–700 one for pennies on the dollar. Okay? Hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe and share, and give me a call, send me an email, visit my website if you are interested in a JS Racing Products turbo kit or a bump box for that matter. Bye.